Here we're going to use the law of cosines to find the measure of angle B. You can always use the law of cosines when you know all three triangle side lengths. You can use it to find any of the three angle measures. So in this case, angle B. So let's look at the law of cosines up above and specifically look at the triangle and how they are labeling that, because we're going to label our triangle as well. Notice that the angles are capital A, capital B, and capital C. So the angles are all in capital letters, and the side lengths are lowercase letters. Notice that the side length for angle A is directly across from the angle capital A, and the same for B and C. So B is across from angle B. So let's use this understanding to label our graph. Now, we know that this is B right here. This is angle B. This is the one we want to find the measure of. So directly across from that would be side length B. So let's call this lowercase b. And then let's call the other two sides A and B, or A and C. We already have a B. Now, when we're labeling angle A, remember the sides and the angles are directly across from each other. So this is angle A, and then this one up here must be angle C. So let's look and see what we know in order to figure out which of these three formulas would make the most sense to use. So we know lowercase a, lowercase b, lowercase c, and we want to know angle B. So which of these formulas would you use? I would use the second one here because this is the only one that has angle B in it. And that's what we're being asked to solve for. So let's write this formula down. And now let's substitute in what we know. So lowercase b is 24. Lowercase a is 32. And lowercase c is 37. Minus 2 times lowercase a times lowercase c times the cosine of B, capital B, angle B. So before we start moving things around, we need to simplify this a bit. So I'm first going to go through and put my calculator and find out what the squares of each of these numbers are. And now let's multiply this all together. And then there's nothing we can do with cosine B quite yet. So again, before I start to simplify, I'm going to, or start to move things around, I'm going to simplify a little bit more. So I'm going to just add these two together. And I can't include that 2,368 because this is actually being multiplied together. So that has to stay together for now. Now I can start moving things away from the B. So let's take a look. We have something being added and subtracted together. So you always undo what's adding and subtracting before you undo the multiplying. So let's move this to the other side by subtracting 2,393. Because when we do, this cancels out and we're just left with this negative 2,368 times cosine of B. Now I can undo this multiplying by dividing both sides by this negative 2,368. Because that undoes this multiplying, so we're just left with cosine B on the right side. Now, the last step to get B by itself is to undo cosine, and we do that by doing the opposite, the inverse cosine. So we need to take the inverse cosine over here, which is cosine with a -1 exponent, that's the symbol for it, and the inverse cosine over here. And what that does is it cancels out the cosine. So we're going to have B by itself. So angle B is the inverse cosine of that 0.7673. So you can put that in your calculator. I'm going to show you how you can do this on Desmos. So if you go to desmos.com, this is what you'll see. So first you click on Graphing Calculator. And we're not going to graph, we're just going to do some calculations. If you go down to the bottom, you can click to show your keypad. Now we're looking for the inverse cosine. I don't see that button here, so you need to click on Functions, and we'll see some other options. And so here we have the inverse cosine button. So we're just going to click that and type in that 0.7673. So here is my answer. It's about 696, pretty small for an angle measure. So I assume that this is in radians, and I want to convert that to degrees. You can do that here on the Desmos calculator by clicking over here on the wrench. Notice that it is kind of shading in radians here. So all we need to do is click degrees and it will automatically change for us. And so it converted that to degrees, so you can say it's about 39.89 degrees.